Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the SideCharacterz Podcast. Today, we'll be talking about ASMR, first animes, and worst anime communities. I am your host, Nathan, and as always, I'm joined by Sam.
Yo.
Let's get stuck straight into it. ASMR has taken the world by storm almost 10 years ago to this month, which is crazy. It's now the first decade of when ASMR hit mainstream media like YouTube and actually became people's careers. Obviously, there is a huge popularity for it on YouTube, and I'm personally not into ASMR myself. I know Sam is into certain things.
Yeah, I was super into it back when it was like gaining popularity back in like 2016, 2015. I wasn't really into the niche stuff, like the weird whispering and the ASMR chewing and like the mouth noises, like that shit was not it. I was into like the tapping and the random noises because that was relaxing in some sort of weird way. Like, have you tried ASMR at all, Nathan?
So funny because I wouldn't really class this as ASMR, as in like, if you say ASMR now as a buzzword, you know exactly what that means on YouTube. But I suppose I'm into not so much white noise, but when you're falling asleep and your window's open and it's raining outside, I love that. I find that so relaxing, which is technically a form of ASMR. Because it's some audio stimulant, right?
Yeah.
That I'm enjoying. But yeah, as I said, if you say ASMR on YouTube, you're just like, what? Because I remember, and just like everything, how it's transitioned over the years and turned into what it is now. ASMR, when it first came out on YouTube, again, was like foam squeezing and satisfying, like tapping on the microphone. And
yeah,
then it took a weird turn. I remember watching some guy doing like ASMR POV, you're being murdered. And he was just there with like metal clanky knives and tools, and it was like sounds of you getting stabbed, and I was like, oh geez.
Yeah, the weird era of ASMR.
Yeah, exactly. And then as everything on the internet, it turned sexual, like everything does. I'm not complaining, I'm a guy, I love boobs, but everything turned sexual. And those ASMR mics came out, those Julia ones, and then you tune into a Twitch streamer and then it's like, and you're just like, what am I watching?
Yeah, there's heebie-jeebie ones. Jesus Christ.
Oh, my body goes into fight or flight with those. I'm fair enough if that's something you enjoy. It's not for me. But recently, a friend of mine sent me a ASMR video that was titled "Medieval Elven Bathhouse and Spa Roleplay," and I was like, do you know what? I didn't even think of like voice acting roleplay as a form of ASMR because I've always taken it as taps and noises and, you know, not just simply talking. I really enjoy really good voice acting. It's the first thing I notice in any sort of game. When someone speaks, I'm just like, oh, I love their voice. That is lovely. That's really nice. And of course, that is a form of ASMR, which I didn't even think about because it's something audio and something I'm enjoying. This medieval elven bathhouse, it made me feel things, and not in the pee-pee area. It made me feel a bit weird.
When you sent it to me, I listened to it and oh my God. Like the first bit is pretty like, okay, sensual, I get that. But I don't know, like I wouldn't really consider this ASMR. It's more like roleplay for lonely weebs who haven't had female contact in years. So I wouldn't consider it ASMR in like the traditional sense. I guess this is how ASMR has evolved into today, but when you say ASMR, this is not the first thing I think of.
There's obviously a market for it because that one channel example had hundreds of videos, millions of views. People were enjoying it. So I guarantee at least one person's jacked to one part of it because it's opened up this new branch of like ASMR, I suppose, because there's so many variants on the channel. If you just have a quick browse, like I can just make some off the top of my head. So it's like Snow Elf invites you into her cabin and it's like real cozy and you want some cocoa and it's like soothing and stuff. And then it goes straight into the hot single mom neighbor wants to give you cuddles and you're just like, oh geez. Does she? Am I invested? Maybe.
Mayhaps, indeed. Maybe I'll listen to that tonight if I'm feeling a little, you know.
Did I click the subscribe and bell button? Maybe. It's just interesting to see how it's evolved over the years because you think, you think the tapping and the scrunchy noises, and now it's into like role play voice work, which I think is a great direction because it's given a lot of people that wouldn't have had this sort of career to express their voice literally and make some money out of it, and always for that. But it's not for me. It's not for me, any form of it.
Yep. It seems a bit too degenerate. I'm not that down bad yet.
We'll get there. Moving on to our next segment, we had a bunch of questions from our community members over at YouTube and TikTok. Please make sure to check both out. And one of the questions was, which I didn't even think about as speaking about, was what was your first anime?
Oh God, I'd have to think about that because when you say first anime, do you mean like the anime I watched as a kid on TV? So I didn't really watch those from like start to finish. But if you include those, then I think my first anime is probably Detective Conan. I really enjoyed it as a kid. I don't think I watched it like episode by episode, and I don't really think there was like a chronological episode by episode, but I think if I had to say what my first anime was, I'd definitely say Detective Conan. Other than that, we had like the Animax channel in India, which I ended up watching a lot as a kid, and shows like Idante Jump, which is like the shonen anime about kids riding their bike. It was real epic as a kid because I used to ride my bike, and personally, I used to like decorate my bike with the style of the show. I'm in the style of the show. I was super into it. If you're talking about anime from start to finish, which I intentionally looked out for and watched, it would probably be Naruto. I remember watching a bit of it on TV and really enjoying it. They stopped playing it on TV or whatever, so I had to like go looking for it online. And I remember watching like the 14-part YouTube videos of like the first episode. Because the first episodes of anime back then were anime videos on YouTube, which had like for copyright reasons were broken down into multiple different videos.
So yeah, I completely agree. It should be split into two questions, and it was, what was the first anime you caught a glimpse of on television? Because that's so different to you purposely searching and watching something. So for me in the UK, anime didn't really exist as a kid unless you went on LimeWire and risked the family laptop by downloading Black Bible illegally. Which, yeah, I know you all did watching this. Don't look at me. Don't judge me. But yeah, it was pretty much non-existent. So I said the first television hit of any sort of anime was definitely Avatar: The Last Airbender, and I'm so glad it was. Like, yes, you could argue, oh, it's Korean. I don't care. It's an anime. It's incredible. It's one of the best animes ever made. It's one of the best character development stories to ever exist in any sort of storytelling media. Like Prince Zuko and Aang, holy shit. So good. So good. And they still mess it up with live actions. And they're bringing out another one. The television show was hosted on a channel called Nickelodeon, which you probably all heard of. And they'd always air it out of order, which was really annoying because I always get excited, like having my dinner and then going to sit by the TV to watch it, and it's the same one I watched 2 days ago. I'm like, come on, let's just watch it because it was sick. But the first anime that I actually sat down to watch is horrific. It is horrible, and I'm surprised that after 20 years, when I first watched this a long time ago, that I'm still watching anime consistently because it was so bad. You know when you watch something and you're just like, I need to step away for a minute because I can't deal with this. I need a shower. It was Desert Punk, and I don't know if anyone's ever watched it or if anyone's even heard of it. Oh my god. That show was awful. The premise slightly was there was some kid in the desert, and it's in some like barren post-apocalyptic world where every bit of resource is sacred and people traded with goods rather than money because they're more valuable, that kind of era. It's like, I haven't watched it since 20 years ago, almost, when it first came out. Actually, it's on its 19th year in next month, funnily enough. That the only part that I can remember of it was the kid was a massive pervert. Classic Japan, especially back then. Pretty sure he was underage. He was a kid. It's literally called Desert Punk. Translates into like Sand Kid, which is brilliant. He has a really, really hard moral decision to make, and he basically saved a beautiful, busty woman in the desert from dehydration that was lost, and helped take her into his cave and give her some shade. Also hunted down the bad guys that were after her, and he's a pervert, so he's just constantly looking at her boobs and trying to figure out a way to get a grab in and stuff. But the bad part is that later on he also saves this pink-haired girl about the same age as him, and then it really comes down to, I don't know if I can say this on YouTube. The show basically came down to, because this guy was a massive pervert and he had two females in his cave, it was either, do I go with the one that's already grown up with boobs, or do I maybe gatekeep the other one?
Oh god.
It was like, oh god. And even after that, I was like, I don't know if anime's for me, because it was like the first one I ever watched. And then not long after that, Black Butler came out, like the year after. So then I watched that, and I was like, this show's amazing. I love this. Can I have more of this one? I thought it was brilliant. Never forget the episode of Sebastian beating an Indian guy making curry because he put chocolate in it. The secret ingredient. The secret ingredient in the curry bun. He won. It was so good. Such a good anime. And then I couldn't talk about it to anyone back then because anime just wasn't a thing. You'd generally get beaten up and bullied for it. Even gaming, like back then when you were a kid. You'd say something like, I was playing games last night or I watched anime last night. You just get beat to fuck. Like, you're a nerd. It doesn't matter. So could not tell anyone about it. So I was on some like sketchy online forums back then because I just wanted to talk about it to someone. And then everyone told me it was a girls' anime. And I was like, oh, okay.
Oh, God. You got ostracized by the anime community as well. That is
Even back then.
That is depressing.
18 years ago, I got gaslit. I was like, oh, okay.
And you still continued watching anime after that?
I still watched it. Yeah, not long after that. I believe it was like Afro Samurai and then bits like that, which was amazing. And yeah, God, what a ride it's been. But it started with Desert Punk, and that's something I have to take to my grave when I'm 80. I'm like, great grandfather, Nathan. Wait, what anime did you watch to get into? I'm like, oh, sit down, kids. Let me tell you about this banger. Let me tell you about this slapper.
slide him over the floppy disk. Give them the goods.
Like Desert Punk, sort you out. Trust me.
No, speaking of like being ostracized by an anime community, what do you think is like the worst anime community out there?
Dragon Ball.
Oh, that's like you took the words out of my mouth. Like
Dragon Ball, the worst. The absolute worst.
The Dragon Ball fan that only watched Dragon Ball and thinks Dragon Ball is the best thing that's ever come out of Japan is way too abundant in the Dragon Ball Z community. And I feel like that is what the Dragon Ball community is at this point. I used to be super into Dragon Ball as a kid. I played the games on the PlayStation. Like, all my friends were into it. I used to draw, like, Goku during lunch break or whatever. I was super into it, okay? Even as a kid, it got a bit repetitive for me in terms of, oh, bad guy shows up, like, he's going Super Saiyan for 3 episodes, and he powers up to Super Saiyan 2, and then next week it's Super Saiyan 3, and then next week it's Super Saiyan 4, and next week it's, like, Giga Super Saiyan or something. So I feel like the Dragon Ball Z franchise as a whole is way too repetitive. Come for me, Dragon Ball Z fans. I'm waiting.
So I've got an IRL story meeting a Dragon Ball fan.
Oh.
So it's Dragon Ball Z fan, sorry, specifically. Dragon Ball's fine. Dragon Ball Z, that's the bad shit. That's not good. Before I tell you the story, if I had to sum up the perfect Dragon Ball Z fan, perfect is in perfect to them, not perfect to us, is that they refuse change and are in constant denial. That's the problem. Dragon Ball Z is the best show ever made. It's not. Dragon Ball Z is the best animation. It doesn't. Dragon Ball Z is the best fight scenes. It does not. It's stuff like that. Then you ask these people that, have you watched anything else? Do you have anything to compare it to? No, I don't need to because it's the best. It's like, what? Okay. So this falls into my IRL story. I was at a friend's wedding, funnily enough. A wedding of all places. It was a work colleague's wedding who I was friends with, and there were other work colleagues there. So they brought their spouses along. So there was someone that I worked closely with, and they brought their husband along. I've been told that the husband of this person is really into Dragon Ball Z, and he likes anime. And oh, Nathan, you should talk to him because you like that anime thing. I'm like, oh, great, okay, yeah, I love that. So I'm actually a sociable weeb, believe it or not.
Ooh.
So then, yeah, they were talking to me, and they were like, oh yeah, mate, let's talk. Like Dragon Ball Z, the best ever. He was like modern Chad, but really annoying. He's like, let's talk about it, Nate. Like, come over here. Let's really chat about it. And we stood like in the middle of the floor.
Right.
And he was like, so tell me about it. Dragon Ball's the best, isn't it? And I was like, no, not really. And he was like, what? And he's went on this massive rant, exactly as I said. He was in denial. He kept saying, oh yeah, this versus this fight is the best. I went home and watched it, and I was like, this is awful. What do you mean? And I was like, the sound design sucks. The story sucks. I'm like, what is this? You can't just keep putting numbers on the end of a guy to keep making him more strong, like more powerful. Are you mad? I'm pretty sure it made the basis of all shonen because all shonen are main character. Bad guy turns up, bad guy beats character. Character gets stronger and beats bad guy. And then you repeat that 50 times. Fairy tale coming after you. The guy at the wedding said, oh, no, you don't understand, Nathan. I have the imported special editions directly from Japan. And I was like, you can watch that online. And he's like, no, this is different. Like, trust me. Like, here's the denial stage.
Oh, God.
He's like, I've got it. This is different. This is so much better. It's got stuff you've never seen. I was like, is that going to make the show better? Is that going to, what? Is that going to change the whole concept? No, it's not. I was like, you're mad. And I was like, oh, you should like comparing it to other things, because when he was like, oh, fight scenes, I was like, oh, you should maybe check out Fate or some of Ufotable's work, like Garden of Sinners or something. Those are really good. Even Naruto's got some amazing fights. And he's like, nah, Dragon Ball's got the best fights. I don't even need to see them. I was like, oh my god, like how you can't say something is the best when you don't know what you're comparing it to, because it's technically the worst at the same time. Like what? Like, say you've only drank a Coke in your entire life. That is also the best and worst drink of your life. This is exactly what Dragon Ball fans are like. It's horrific.
God, I feel bad. If you're a Dragon Ball Z fan, I feel bad for you.
You watch other shows, please.
Please.
And not Jujutsu Kaisen, because then you'll say that's the best show in the world, and it's not. Holy God. Leave a comment below on what you think is the worst anime community. Also, what is your first animes? I'm always interested to see, because we've all got different experiences with anime, and I think it really just reflects our tastes. Mm-hmm. Not in my case with Desert Punk. Don't even. But let us know below.
Yeah, let us know why Dragon Ball Z is the worst anime you've ever seen.